please welcome Chris Sacca. Welcome to the grill.
Right on.
I'll take a hug. Thanks. Thanks for coming. Please,
I figured if you had a pillow here,
you can lie down.
We can do the
therapy thing. Yeah, that would be cool. I would like to be inside your head because I would like to know. We would all like to know, what is the secret? What is the secret?
To the shirts?
Yeah, the secret to the shirts, exactly.
VintageWesternwear.com.
Exactly. So you were here at the grill. I checked. It wasn't 2 years ago. You were here 3 years ago. And you were pretty successful already then. But since then, the companies that you've invested in have really scaled to at an incredible rate. And we should start by talking about Twitter, because that's one of them that scaled and is already in a new phase. So let's start with that. You have been militating for the return of...
That's a good verb, militating.
Isn't that? It's correct.
No one said it. That's original by you. Yeah,
it's
I like
accurate,
that.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. For the return of Jack Dorsey to become the permanent CEO, who was already running another company that he started called Square. And you won that battle yesterday. Jack Dorsey was named permanent CEO. How do you feel about that? What's your sense of where Twitter's going to go from here?
I mean, I feel great about it, but we all knew the outcome was inevitable. I mean, Jack is uniquely talented at both his product vision and at running companies. He's shown it now at Square, and this wasn't a hypothetical. He's been running Twitter for 100 days now, and those 100 days have been the fastest moving, most productive, highest impact days we've had in the history of the company. And so I was glad the board finally got out of the way and named him so he can get back to work. It's
been frustrating for you.
Yeah, that's a good word.
You're hardly shy about it.
Well, look, you've got, if you really looked at his support, it was universal among the management team, among employees, among advertisers, partners, content producers, the leading analysts on the stock, the biggest investors in Square. Everybody wanted Jack to be CEO.
And you think the main thing is that he can't be running two companies at the same time is the main gating issue?
None of the people I listed believed that was a problem.
Okay.
A couple of people on the board seemed to believe that was an issue, and so they dragged this out. And we've got a guy here who not only was the inventor of the product and has a vision for what it could be many years out, but he also has a 100% rating on Glassdoor. He inspires the people who work for him. And in the short time he's been running the company, we've seen the product process unstuck. We've seen stuff that has been on the whiteboard wall for a while executed. We've seen code shipping. You've seen buy buttons shipped to millions of merchants. You've seen Twitter polls, which are the highest engagement thing that have ever happened on Twitter. You've seen Lightning go from something that we probably would have expected in Q1 to being out the door today. We have seen the client itself redesigned to be more beautiful, to be, it's white instead of blue, but they pulled a lot of stuff out that's increased engagement.
What is this then? I mean, by most
for this audience, have you seen the Twitter TV channels now? Those are amazing, right? So show by show, if you've got a show you like or a star you like, you get directed right into an incredible
conversation
TV.
About
I mean, all that stuff has been happening with Jack at the helm. We
in the media industry, right, have found Twitter to be an enormously helpful tool. And by the standards of normal human business growth, Twitter would be fantastic. The problem is, of course, is that it's always being regarded in the context of versus Facebook, which has become a monster. Do you think that's fair, or do you think that Twitter will be able to find its own path?
I think it's fair because Twitter during the IPO process made a fundamental mistake, which is it said in its S1, its IPO filing, that you should measure the growth of this company based on monthly active users who are logged into the site. And I think that was a mistake. I think it makes perfect sense for Facebook because in order to get the richness of Facebook, you have to be logged in. It has to know who your friends are. In order to get the Twitter experiences you're seeing on Moments today, it doesn't actually need to know anything about you. Once you click a couple of times, it knows enough about you to start getting you the content you're interested in. It's a more valuable graph at the end of the day because Twitter has the interest graph rather than the friend graph. I mean, Facebook is who you used to know. Twitter is who you want to know and the things you want to know more about. And so it's a more valuable graph to a media partner. It's a more valuable graph to a retailer, to a brand.
Well, as media partners, I think people in this room might tell you that Facebook is definitely more valuable today because they're able to monetize it. I don't think that the media
So Twitter's doing a $2.25 billion run rate, growing at, I think in the last quarter they announced 75% year-over-year growth. So that's about 3 times faster than any other company of its scale. So, I mean, you can say it's not monetizing, but I'll take the $2.25 billion a year.
What does it need to do? What do you think Twitter, now that they've done the one thing that you've been pushing hard for is to name Jack Dorsey CEO, what does the company as a whole need to do?
Well, I think Jack Dorsey understands normal people better than most of the folks in technology. You know, part of that is Jack is the kind of guy who leaves the office and goes and he walked the streets in Ferguson when all that was going on. You saw his vines and periscopes literally from the front lines. He's a guy who meets with small merchants and farmers markets all the time in connection with his Square job. He understands real people, and I think he knows how to make this product simpler and more approachable and more engaging for normal people. You know, a lot of the people in this room are hardcore users. And
raise your hand if you're a hardcore user of Twitter.
We will figure out how to click and use the buttons. And there are a lot of people who are just like, it's exhausting, it's too much work.
Yeah, it's too hard.
I don't want to invest in it. And I think if any of you try Moments today, it will immediately click why that is addictive. I mean, my phone has never blown up more with kind of.
Well, let's stop and say Moments is a new product that was launched today, since some of you might have been busy.
Yeah, they basically aggregated all the stuff. So whether you want to see the highlights of the Seahawks game last night, whether you want to see stuff from the front lines of the refugees who are coming in from Syria through Eastern Europe, whether you wanted to see the funniest tweets about the fact that McDonald's all-day breakfast starts today. It's all there, and you don't have to do any work. It just comes at you. It's amazing. You just swipe left to right. They're hilarious. It's the kind of thing that advertisers are going to love. Media partners are going bananas. But one of the things that I've loved the most is that some of my most disaffected, apathetic friends on Wall Street are like, holy shit, this is the thing. I've been on it all morning. I'm not getting any work done. And so I think.
Do you think in 6 months from now we're going to see dramatic change in user growth? I mean, that's the main thing.
But again, user growth, so as measured by MAUs, you don't have to log in to use Moments. And I don't think it's necessary for you to log in to be valuable and be monetizable on Moments. And so, you know, LinkedIn reports unique visitors. Yahoo reports unique visitors. I would like to see Twitter move away from MAUs to total monetizable audience. That's a much. Yeah, look, if you've got attention, you can get in front of them with ads, right? And so anywhere that you've got someone's attention, Adam Bain can show them an ad and make money. That's a better measure of the growth of the company. And if you look at it that way, Twitter is almost the size of Facebook in terms of the number of people it reaches with tweets. Hundreds of millions of people visit the homepage and don't log in, but they get a richer experience than ever before.
If you could boil it down, you roll back the clock 2 years or even 3 years, what would you say that Facebook did right and that Twitter did wrong?
I really think the IPO, I mean, there were a group of us who were banging the table during the IPO process saying, what in the actual fuck are you doing trying to pigeonhole us into the Facebook model? I mean, that was a real problem, and it was really advocated strongly by the bankers and the mutual funds who wanted to buy something familiar and put it into an existing model. And I think they didn't fundamentally understand Twitter, and that set us up for that challenge. That said, at the end of the day, the money is going to keep stacking up in the revenue corner, and so that's why I own a shit ton of the stock and will continue to.
Keep it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, how much of Twitter do you own?
We don't say.
Right, but you can say here.
No, we just don't say. Yeah.
Okay.
A lot. At the time of the IPO,
are you the largest?
At the time of the IPO, I was the largest shareholder. I've since had to distribute some of those shares to my LPs because I'm not in the job of holding public stocks for other folks. Okay. But I obviously ended up with a lot of the company as a result.
Okay, so, but you're not on the board.
No, they get all the help they want from me or don't want from me without me being on the board.
Right. Okay.
It's a lot easier. When you're not on the board, you don't have a boss in the communications department or the general counsel telling you what you can and can't say. So I just get to be candid about what's working and what's not working.
It makes you pretty unusual because you also, I mean, you use that Twitter feed with a vengeance for sure.
Yeah, and Periscope.
For us in the media, it's fantastic.
Yeah, but I mean, look, generally speaking, I'm on one board out of 85 companies, and that's just because my partner who runs our seed fund, Matt Mazzio, and I build close enough relationships with our founders that I don't need a formalized relationship to influence the outcomes for for those companies. They want to work with us. They want our advice, and I think what happened in the case of Twitter was that the company over this last quarter and a half was being run by the board, And those aren't people I want to build relationships with. I want to work with the founders, the doers, the makers, the people who are driving the company, not the mercenaries, not the outsiders, not the country club of old white guys who move from company to company as professional board members. Fuck that noise. I want to be in with the people who are making it happen.
So that takes us to the heart of what I think everybody wants to know about.
I noticed a dramatic pause there. Did you want to process that for a
Yeah,
second?
I was totally. Yeah, I was. Whenever people use the F word on stage, I like to take a moment. Okay, so I think what everybody really wants to know is, like, for lack of a better, the easiest way to put it is, how do you do it? In other words, like, how do you identify a founder who comes to you essentially with an idea, right? Because you're investing at the seed phase in I don't know, all of these companies?
Yeah, almost always. I mean, we do a few later stage investments, but.
Right, so how do you identify that A, that the idea is sound,
yeah.
B, that it's disruptive enough to scale, and C, that person who's pitching it to you is the person who's going to be able to bring that to life and make it fly?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we often try to look back and do this analysis, not so much like Excel sheet based, but do a postmortem. Why did we make money in that situation? And more often than not, where were we wrong? How did we eat it there? That thesis. I mean, so every single investment we get into has what we would think is a sound thesis, right? They come to us with a product. We think they're solving a problem. We think they're the right people to do it, and we think they're doing it right. And then on a lot of those, it turns out we're totally wrong for myriad reasons, right? Wrong team, wrong product, too early, too late, spent all their money, we didn't pay enough attention to them, whatever. And so very often we're wrong. That's one thing that VCs aren't really, nobody,
that's the model.
We don't get up here and talk about when we're wrong, right? But we get up here and talk about, because when I'm right, I'm really, really right. And that's what you always ask me about. So, but we spend a lot of time trying to figure out why we're wrong sometimes. That said, the one thing I can point to consistently among our biggest winners, so Twitter, Uber, Instagram, Kickstarter, Docker, Optimizely, Matt can chime in. Stripe, yeah, is a great one. Thanks, Matt. Matt Mazzio, everybody. Slack, just all of these companies that have gone on to do these amazing things and completely exceed expectations, is that in every single case, when we met that founder, they had such calm conviction about the inevitability of their success that it's contagious. They don't speak with conditional language, they speak with future tense. You sit down with Kevin Systrom, founder of Instagram, when he was one person working on Instagram. He didn't even have Mikey there yet. He was working in a shared co-working space, I think it was called Pier 38 in San Francisco, and I sat down with him, and he literally said, and so when we get to 50 million users is when we'll roll out this next set of features.
Really?
And you're kind of looking around the room, and you're like, dude, it's just you. But it wasn't boisterous, it wasn't cocky, he wasn't trying to sell me. You actually get the sense they're looking right through you to the future, and you want to get on board before they leave you behind. That is consistent. I mean, think of the early days of Uber, working with, remember Travis wasn't our original CEO. Travis was one of the co-founders of the company, but it was Travis and Garrett, and we found this guy, Ryan. Travis found him on Twitter. Ryan quit his job in Chicago, drove across country, stopped at my house. I live in Truckee, which is Lake Tahoe. He stopped at my house because he couldn't afford a hotel on the way. And we were running this company. It was completely haphazard, right? Within a couple months of
2009,
yeah,
8, 9?
Yeah. Within a couple months of opening, San Francisco put a cease and desist on the company. Even though they couldn't point to a single law we were breaking, they still let Travis know that every single day he stayed in operation, he was facing 30 days of jail. And so
what was the charge?
They literally didn't have one. That was the funny thing.
What didn't they like?
They didn't like that we competed with the cabs who fund all the politicians.
Oh, yeah, on Uber, yes.
Yeah, and so...
Otherwise, I'm just wondering...
But Travis was undaunted. He just knew it was going to work out. And to this day, if you've been around Travis, you just know that will be one of the biggest companies in the history of the planet. Like, I still like it at $51 billion. I'm buying more right now, so...
You're buying more?
Yeah. I know I will make much, much more money buying Uber at $51 billion.
Well, there's a study that I saw this morning.
Twitter, like people used to say that about me buying Twitter at I bought 10% of the company at $4 billion, and everyone thought I was bananas for doing so. Like, just totally bonkers. And I just knew it. It was just inevitable.
So that has a lot more to do with your decision making, which is essentially a gut decision, right?
It's not a gut decision. I mean,
than looking at the financial analysis that you're being handed.
Look, one of the things I could never be in the movie business, where based on no information, you have to decide whether to put up hundreds of millions of dollars on something, right? And you're going to have a binary outcome almost always, like a lot of money or close to zero, and you have no data up front. And so that's why everything's tending.
That's actually not the case.
Well, I know you think there's all this data and shit like ahead of time and like how it's going to do and how much money to put into marketing.
Yeah.
I know. I hear
Josh
it.
Goldstein, are you still here?
Yeah, I know there's. But you know, I told you back in 2005 I had all this data at Twitter or at Google, sorry, that I was trying to share with all the studios to show that 8 weeks out I could predict with an R squared of 0.82 the opening weekend box office gross just based on query volume. I know. But when you're really making a decision to greenlight something, you have infinitely less information than I have when I go into a company. And when we invest in a company now, it already has some users. It already has some what's called social proof. It already has people tweeting out, holy shit, this is the best thing ever. I love this thing. Or it's got people being like, I don't get it. Like we had a company called Heroku, a huge developer tools company that was sold to Salesforce, a massive acquisition, one of the very first companies in that space. And I knew enough about the entrepreneurs that I got comfortable, but when it came to the technology, it was actually more intense than I was capable of evaluating myself. And so we went to Twitter, and we looked at all of these hardcore geeks who were like, holy shit, I'm moving all my stuff over to Heroku. That was great. So I didn't have to completely guess and pull it out of the ether.
Right.
I knew, I could see that that was happening. And then, you know, the second component is, for me, is do I think I can personally impact the outcome? Do I know there's a role for me there to improve the founders, to improve the product, to help bring in the next round of financing, to sell the company if that's what it takes? And if so, then that's a great candidate for investment. We get shown, you know, cures for cancer and stuff like that all the time, and I wouldn't even know how to help that thing along, so we pass on that stuff.
So you pass.
Yeah.
What kinds of companies are you still looking for, and do you think there's a lot of disruptors still to come?
I mean, yeah, we're just getting started. Like, the world is just getting all these phones in their pockets with actual consistent connectivity now. We've got high bandwidth to these things. I think the content partners have started to come along and get religion about, hey, we can all make some money here. It's not necessarily about piracy. I think social is just getting started. In the beginning, social wasn't very social at all. It was kind of individualistic and antisocial, but I think we're starting to see how social literally can bring us together. I think we're seeing innovation in games and virtual reality.
Yeah. That's an important point. I mean, what do you mean that social wasn't social at all?
Well, in the early days, I think social was a way to it was a one-way discussion. There wasn't a lot of real engagement there. Often it was one-to-one, not one, you know, or one-to-many, but without any real feedback channel. And now I think people are using social more and more to actually get together in real life, to find people with like interests, to engage, to build meaningful relationships, to create together. Think of what Kickstarter's done as a platform. You know, it's taken social relationships and built in a patronage model and fostered more innovation than the National Endowments for the Arts actually funds in a year. I mean, it's huge. Doing hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of art and creativity a year as a result of social engagement.
Is Kickstarter still growing? Does it have?
I mean, Kickstarter couldn't grow faster. Yeah, and I don't know if you read, but they just converted into a public benefit corporation. So Kickstarter will remain independent forever. That's very cool. Super proud of those guys.
We've had the crowdfunding folks. We've had Kickstarter here. We've had Indiegogo here. You know, and they're really interesting. But I find that they've kind of fallen out of the conversation a little bit, and I don't know if that's because too many projects, at least in the media and entertainment space, have found the funding but not figured out a way how to get those movies out there, or whatever the project may be, a short, and then not really been able to monetize.
Yeah, well, I mean, monetization is an interesting thing, right, in terms of net to the producer of an event. My brother was one of the very first YouTube stars. He was a comedian, and literally back in 08, 09, he had Comedy Video of the Year on YouTube and stuff like that. And so no one from his fancy NYU Tisch education gave a shit. But at the same time, he did a web short with Bill Murray that became a web series that my brother would clear $500,000 a year doing a web series because he would write it, shoot it, edit it, color correct it, cater it, staff it with his buddies, use open source music, ship it, and it cost $50,000 to make, and somebody would sign a deal for $600,000, and he would take it home. And so.
Do you make it sound so easy?
Well, I mean, look, my mom and dad would, growing up in Buffalo, New York, would have murdered somebody for $600,000. And so if you look around these studios.
Do they know you're a billionaire? You better watch your back.
No, but I mean, like, if you look around the studios and networks and talent agencies, I admire the people at the top who are raking in millions and millions of dollars. But there are a lot of people in the middle who aren't. And it always rings hollow to them when you talk about, like, oh, this movie only made $10 million. Because we see it in our industry too. I remember there was an author who once, one of the big bloggers who, we sold a company once for $25 million, and he called it a dipshit exit. I was like, seriously? Like $25 million? Like, our fund made a couple $1 million, which means I made like $500,000 to $1 million, which means the founders made $5 million. Like, in what fucking world is $5 million not an insane amount of money? Mm-hmm. And so when you look at Kickstarter, an opportunity for somebody to build the startup project of their dreams or to fund the film they've always wanted to fund, and now they have an independent source of financing of people who are willing to take on that financing risk in a distributed basis, so it's not all eggs in one basket. They finally get to make the movie they wanted to make, and they maybe got paid $80,000 a year to do that over the 3 years they made it or something like that. Like, that's dreamy. Mm-hmm. Like, go ask any film student who would want that job.
When it works.
Yeah. And if it doesn't work, you're not bankrupt. Like, that's amazing, right? So if it doesn't work, it's not a permanent scar on your reputation. You haven't risked everything. You're not completely shut out and able to get credit cards, et cetera. Like, you're not in debtor's prison. That's dreamy. That is an incredible solution where we have distributed the risk and we've distributed the wealth. And I think we've enabled a whole new generation of creators who can succeed without necessarily being on magazine covers, but be perfectly happy and contented, maybe more so than a lot of people in the room.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear from maybe some people in the audience who've been using Kickstarter, so about what their experiences are, but we'll have to table that.
You sound like you got it. Did you not get something?
I did not get something, but I mean, as a news site that covers this area, we get pitched constantly with projects on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. Can you write about this? Can you write about that? Can you write about this? Can you write about that? And it's
can't knock the hustle.
No, that's not my point. It's more that has dwindled a lot, I would say, in the past 12 months, and I think there's some learnings that are going on there, and I wonder, if it's hard to figure out the distribution piece of it. That, in other words, that helps you produce.
It couldn't be growing faster. And actually today, they announced a new element of what they're doing. Kickstarter is collaborating with the White House on funding opportunities for Syrian refugees, and so brand new model for them, totally fascinating.
That's cool, and I bet a lot of people will want to participate in that because there's a way for people to help. Yep. Okay, let's go back to social for 1 minute, because one of the things that's happened in the time since you've been at TheGrill last time is Snapchat was created and has not only been created but is scaled in like 18 months and has become this monster. And a lot of people, I think, thought that it wouldn't be possible for there to be yet another social platform that could.
Those are not rich people. Those are poor people. Whoever thinks that is just, I mean, anyone betting against technology,
I've talked to investors
or betting against progress, so I can imagine people saying no to Snapchat because I was one of those people. Like, those guys came up to me after an event here in LA. They're like, Chris, we're huge fans of your work. And I was like, I've heard of you guys, and they're like, we really want to work with you. It was the seed round. And I was like, the dick pics, that thing? Like, like, I was totally closed-minded to that being the one, right? Of course there's going to be more social stuff. Anyone who tells you otherwise is just stupid. It's like the whole IBM, there's only going to be 7 computers in the world. But I'm
talking about with mass scale.
By the way, when I went back and told my partner that I'd passed on Snapchat, he's 10 years younger than I am, he's like, what? Like, and by then it was too late.
It was too late? Like, you couldn't pick up the phone?
No. They had already raised another round. It was big. We were out. Yeah, it was a bummer. So. One of the reasons why I hired a younger guy to take over our seed fund is exactly that. I sometimes think my reactions to social products aren't necessarily representative. I don't really want to meet new people. I've never swiped left or swiped right on anybody because I'm really happily married. I don't want anyone to know where I live. Like, I rarely tell people where I am at the time. Like, I'm not a good representative user of a social product necessarily. And so,
that's because you've aged out?
I have. I mean, I aged out. I'm also cost insensitive now, right? So
right.
I don't give a shit if an app costs $4.99. It turns out everybody else in the world does, but that's real.
Does that make it hard to invest, though, when you're thinking about, or are you saying that you don't want...
I need to surround...
You want to only invest with people you already know and who are familiar to you?
Right, but we try and surround ourselves with young people who are still paying back their student loans, who are single and trying to date and trying to meet people and trying to get their name out there.
How do you surround
yourself? Buying new shit and racking up credit card debt and making bad decisions and all that stuff. That's part of that learning process.
Do you have kids? I mean, that'll just do it right there.
So yeah, I want to. We need. I mean, we walk around Best Buy to watch how people make technology buying decisions because I don't. I just buy shit on Amazon. It's there the next morning. But I want to see somebody who's agonizing over which camera to buy. And why they buy a camera that's not their phone is fascinating to me. So I want to see that.
Okay, so go back. So you passed on Snapchat. It's okay.
I mean, I passed on a lot of shit. Like, I passed on Airbnb. I was one of the very first people to see Airbnb. And back then, it was renting a room in somebody's house while the owner was still there.
Yeah.
That can still happen, but that's a very small part of their business. And they told me that. And I had this really strong reaction, and I took the founders aside, and I said, look, you guys, somebody's going to get raped or murdered, and the blood is going to be on your hands. I really think this is a dangerous thing.
By the way, you could totally be right. I mean,
it's happened one time.
There's been a really...
$20 billion company, it's happened one fucking time. Yeah. I suck. I told Dropbox that Google was going to crush them. We had a product that was exactly Dropbox at Google when I worked there back in 05, 06. It was called Platypus, and then it's now G Drive. And I told the Dropbox guys, no way. Missed on that one. Matt, what else have I missed on? Yeah.
That's reassuring to know that you can make mistakes too. Good for all of us.
Nobody admits those until they've made a lot of right decisions, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which one of these companies do you worry about in terms of their growth? I mean, Uber is one that has had some PR problems, for example. By the way,
do you know what that does for growth, right?
It depends.
Anytime
you
mention the word,
PR,
you just mentioned
PR?
Uber, somebody here just downloaded it. It's like a reflexive action. It's just
no, you might Google
those cab
it. You might not
drivers in
download
France strike, and it just rockets to the top of the App Store. It's there is no such thing as bad PR for Uber.
Cab drivers striking, that is definitely good PR, but you don't want, bad stuff being said about executives at Uber. But I want to set that aside for 1 second because, I mean, the change to the world of Uber has just been absolutely remarkable. I was in Canada for the Toronto Film Festival, and there was no Uber in Canada. I was like, how is that possible? How am I going to get anywhere? All of a sudden it was.
Yeah.
It
Well, there was,
so
but then they carted off the 2 executives to jail at the behest of the cab lobby, and so you'll see they're running again. The Ubers are back on the street.
They weren't up and running during the Toronto Film Festival, which was when I needed them.
The guys are going to end up doing some time as a result, but they're running again.
That's cool. That would be a badge of honor for their kids someday.
Totally. I really admire the moxie.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so they're back in Canada?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, any individual city right now is a blip on the radar of Uber, and I think we have just seen, if you want to get yourself voted out of office as a city council person, the very fastest way is to take on Uber. I mean, you saw what happened when de Blasio did it in New York. You got spanked. It's just getting in the way of people doing something awesomely, safely, effectively, cheaply, accountably is just bad. That's bad news for a politician. And I think one by one cities have been figuring that out. It's the safest platform for women, for kids. It's a great job creator. It reduces drunk driving materially in the cities it operates in.
What I want to raise is I just saw...
It's just a bad move as a politician. Like, getting in the way of it just exposes corruption.
Well, what I wanted to cite before was that I saw a study that it seems to be impacting people's decisions about car buying, that people are buying cars about 22% less often, or Uber passengers, I should say specifically, not to general population, and they're telling the pollsters that it's because of Uber, meaning they're questioning whether they actually need to buy a new car or not.
Yeah.
Or need to buy a car, I suppose.
That's awesome, actually.
And so that means that it's really has an impact actually on the car industry, ultimately, if that becomes a true
Well, look, cars are
measure.
inefficient. You use them 6% of the time. They sit around unused. That's a huge environmental impact. It's a space impact. They take up all this space in our cities because of bad parking. We spend more time driving around, so there's a huge pollution impact, not just in terms of all the cars that are inefficiently looking for somewhere to stop, but all of the materials that go into manufacturing cars. They're a scourge. And so if you care about the planet, Uber helps.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I'm a huge fan of the sharing economy, as I have written, and I love Airbnb as well. And there's risk.
You're just rubbing it in now.
Yeah, I'm just no. I really do love the sharing. I love that idea. I think that we have to, as a planet, kind of figure out how to waste less, and so I like it from that perspective. Is there anything that you're looking at now, like any big ideas that you're looking for? In other words, I'd really like to get involved in a company that's in this space or that space.
Yeah, I mean, we do have some thematic stuff we're looking at, but the reality is that the very best ideas are hopefully ones we didn't think of. They're things that they come in the door and we're like, OMG, that is pretty rad. They're by totally driven entrepreneurs with a very unique lens on the world. If Matt and I have thought of them, odds are higher that so have other people. There's really smart people working on them, et cetera. I want guys and gals with very unique perspectives. I'll give you an example. The hottest company in our portfolio right now is called InVenture. It's actually here in Santa Monica. Founder is Shivani Soroya. She's one of the most diligent and aggressive and absolutely brilliant founders we've ever had. She's an econometrist, so I've never had a founder know their own numbers better than she does. But she has a client, an app, that when you install it on your phone in the developing world, she can tell you instantaneously how creditworthy you are, make you a mobile money loan, because obviously the banking systems in sub-Saharan Africa are way ahead of the banking system in the United States, but she can make you an instantaneous mobile money loan, and the repayment rates on those are higher than any FICO-based loan in the United States. That's fucking great. Like, that's amazing, and I would have never thought of that on my own.
It's an app that allows people in Africa to borrow money from her. She has a fund?
From InVenture.
Or she's like a broker?
Yeah, we have a company and we have a credit facility we lend from. I'm an investor in both.
Right.
Yeah, and so
Very cool.
It's amazing. I mean, it prints money while providing this amazing service to people. You know, the prevailing interest rate in the black market there is 350%. So, so it provides this amazing service that allows people to grow their businesses, go to school.
How did she get to you?
So, it was you know the TED conference?
Yes.
It was. I almost missed this. It was dinner with a speaker night. I really wanted to sit at the table of Dan Ariely, the guy who wrote Predictably Irrational. He's like influenced my thinking a lot. And I got there and I had so much FOMO because his table was full. He was holding court and telling great stories, and it was like a movie. Everyone was laughing their asses off, like, Dan, you're amazing. And so I felt so left out. And I walked around the rest of the room and I saw only one speaker sitting alone. She's a small woman with just this sad flag that said Shivani Soroya, and I'm like, shit, I'd be an asshole if I didn't go say hi. So I walk up, I'm like, hi, I'm Chris, and Shivani, hey, what do you do? 2.5 hours later, I realized I hadn't eaten a bite of the food they put in front of me. I was so fascinated by everything she did, the implications for development, how inspiring she was as a leader, how much this company meant to her. And if you go to her website, by the way, she also has the most culturally diverse team we've ever been involved with. And she doesn't even hire for diversity. She hires for excellence and does business around the world. And it's just not an accident. She's kicking ass. That's the one board I serve in, by the way. I serve on. I want to be around her.
Wow.
And when she's operating
Maybe
as much
you'll bring
as
her back to the grill next year.
Yeah, you'll be reading a lot more about her. She's got the stuff.
Cool. Thank you, Chris Sacca. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
That's great.
Cool.
Thanks.
Cool. Right on.
Thanks. We'll see you guys.